Hi, my fellow Americans. I'm Dr. Stephen Clark Bradley, and this is what I think. In my last video, we were talking about all the violence that's taking place in America on our streets and how the Democrat Party is again spinning things out of control and trying to blame President Donald J. Trump for the things that he has pointed out that are wrong and that they are allowing to continue in their Democrat-run cities, and how they're trying to use their spin machine to blame him for everything that's going on. Well, in this video, I would like to talk to you about the actual Democrat Party itself. Now, nowadays, I call it the Democrat Socialist Party, because that's what it is. It's changed totally from any Democrat Party of the past. And as I heard several journalists today on TV, both liberal and conservative, say that if it continued as it is, one wonders if the Democrat Party will even survive. And it shouldn't, because it's become like an enemy combatant. It hates who we are. It wants to change us into something, and it's been taken over by the radical left. Even that term is not strong enough. Not the radical left. The radical socialist, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden has become one of them because they're his bosses. What is the Democrat Party, and what has it always been? Did it just now become this bastion of American-hating leftists who put their brown shirts out on the street and try to kill our people and try to kill our senators and can't even leave the White House safely anymore? Did it just happen now? Or have they always been a party that hated anything to do with who America really should be? Who fostered slavery in America? Was it the Republican Party? No. It was the Republican Party that ended slavery. Let's take a look at the years that have gone by. Now, I come from a very strong Democrat family. I've never been a Democrat. I saw through it even when I was a young man, a teenager, very interested in politics. I just refused to be a Democrat because, for me, they wanted to limit my life, and they want to make me someone I'm not. But the Democrat Party has never been a friend of freedom. The Democrat Party has always been a friend of tyranny. Tyranny doesn't just take place in Congress, inside the halls of the government. It takes place also out in the fields of cotton where they own slaves and beat them and often cut their nerves in their legs so they couldn't run away, separated families, and destroyed them. That wasn't Republicans. That was Democrats. Well, you say, well, that was them then. They've changed. When did they change? It's one thing to have a slave in shackles and forcing them to work in the cotton fields of the plantation. Or it's another thing to take people and make them slaves of the government, tell them that they're incapable of taking care of themselves, tell them that they have to depend on a government because the government knows best for them, and to make them totally dependent on government help so that they never get out and find their full potential, because if they do, they won't vote for the Democrats anymore. So they took them and made a different kind of slave, and not just black people either. White people, every people, those that depend on a government like that, you are slaves. You take something from the government like that, then you are a slave of them because you are the borrower and they are the lender. Believe me, it's not free. There is no free lunch. What is the Democrat Party? The Democrat Party is an evil party, and it has always been an evil party. They took our country to war. Now, everybody likes to say that Abraham Lincoln didn't go to the Civil War to end slavery. Now, of course, he did not come out and say that my purpose for fighting the Civil War is to end slavery. Had he done that, nobody would have supported him. But in his heart, his original intent and his purpose to fight back against the South was to end slavery. His purpose to be in politics was to end slavery. He hated it. He had a terrible relationship with his father. But his father hated slavery too. They were against it. Ulysses S. Grant, the general who won the Civil War for us, he come from an anti-slavery family. There are lots of people, but they were not Democrats. They were Republicans. They were those who hated to see the people, black people at that time, in shackles, forced to work, beaten, and often killed. It's definitely maimed. 360,000 Republicans died in the North and to end slavery. 360,000. And 258,000 Democrats died in the South to keep slavery alive. That's pretty telling. That was their purpose for the Confederacy. They said, well, you're changing our way of life. Yes, we did. And it needed to be. We're changing our economic structure. Yes, we did. And it needed to be. Now, personally, I love our history. I don't think any statues should be destroyed. I don't. But many of them should be taken down. I agree with Governor Haley, in South Carolina before, Nikki Haley, when she took down the Confederate flag. Come on, guys. The Confederacy is dead. It was our enemy. It was not our friend. It is our history, and it should be maintained because history is important. Because if you don't know it, you're doomed to repeat it, as the old adage says. But we don't need to have these statues, but they need to be taken down legally, peacefully, honorably, and to maintain our history. But I can understand why they are offensive to people. Because the Confederacy was an ugly thing. And it was a Democrat thing. After the war was over, before Lincoln was assassinated, just prior to winning the war in Appomattox, Lincoln had already started working on the next amendment to end slavery. And his greatest enemy was not the South. It was the Democrats who remained in the North, in the Congress. They fought him tooth and nail. I recommend that you watch the movie with Daniel Day-Smith, is it? The actor who plays Lincoln. He's excellent. And it explains all the whole story of how the Democrat in the Congress tried their best to stop Lincoln from freeing slavery and giving them equality. And finally, he got the amendment passed. And after he was assassinated, when President Johnson, Andrew Johnson, took power, he was not a Republican. He was a Democrat, because they picked the Democrat for the Lincoln's second term to help unify the nation so he could be reelected. And when Lincoln was assassinated, Johnson did his best to fight Reconstruction, made it almost impossible. And even after Ulysses S. Grant, a great friend of African-American freed slaves in that day, even though his statue was torn down terribly, he was really anti-slavery and very pro-freedom for African-Americans. He had a hard time with the Democrats during Reconstruction because they tried to keep the freed slaves out of it, and they ended up creating the Jim Crow system. And out of the Jim Crow system came another one, which was called what? The KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, created by the Democrats. Democrats created all these. Robert Byrd, a great picture of Joe Biden with Robert Byrd, who was the former Senate majority leader in the Senate. He was a grand poobah of the KKK, started by the Democrats and maintained by the Democrats and still run by the Democrats to this day. Even though the KKK might be smaller, it's still out there, and they're all Democrats. Democrats don't love black people. Democrats love power to control them, and they love votes. They don't love you if you're African American, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, if you're white. They don't love you. They love votes. Chuck Schumer, you know what he's really saying? He's saying, if I can't get American people to vote for me, hell, I'll bring in illegals and get them to vote for me. Elect his Democrats. He doesn't care about you. He cares about power. Nancy Pelosi. All of them on the Democrat side. That doesn't mean the Republicans are perfect. No way. I'm not a Republican anyway. But they're far better than anything you'll see on the Democrat side. Okay? That's why I vote with them. Even though I'm not a Republican. I'm an American. I don't vote. I don't hold to any group. But I can tell you right now, they're better than the Democrats. The real Democrat Party of the past is the future Democrat Party of future slavery, not just of African Americans, but of whites, Hispanics, Asians, anybody who calls themselves American. They want to enslave us in socialism. They want to take away your economic freedom, take away your economic ability to have a life that you choose. They want to control you, take away your individual liberty, to tell you what kind of person you should be, where you should live, what kind of house you live in, what kind of car you drive, what food you eat. They want to get down and control every facet of your life. That's the Democrat Party. And now they're not the Democrat Party anymore. They're the Democrat Socialist Party. I never call them the Democratic Party because they are not democratic, all right? They are not. They are socialist. And as I said in a previous video, Lenin said the goal of socialism is communism. That's what they want. That's where they're headed. And that's where they want to take you and take me. Look here. I've written down here, these are some of the things that the Democrat Party has done over the years. And they still maintain it today, and they still want to do it. The Democrat Party defended slavery. It started the Civil War. It opposed Reconstruction. It founded the KKK. It imposed segregation. It perpetrated and maintained and encouraged lynching. All done by Democrats. So, when you see all this, and also they fought the Civil Rights Acts. The Civil Rights Acts of the 60s were all opposed by Democrats. None of them supported by Democrats. It was the Republicans who made sure that those laws got passed. The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So many of them. And you say, well, President Johnson was this great pro-civil rights president. He didn't care about blacks. He didn't care about Asians. He didn't care about civil rights. He didn't care about equal rights. Here's a quote by him. Shall I quote it? Let me just read it to you. He said, encourage everybody to vote for the Civil Rights Act. The quote from President Lyndon Baines Johnson was, I'll have all those N-words, I'll have all those blank voting Democrat for the next 200 years. His goal wasn't to help them. His goal was to control them and to use them for votes. Illegal immigration in America is no different than what that was. They don't care about illegal immigrants. They care about them voting for them. That's why when Trump tried to get the Dreamer Act passed and to give them a good deal, the Democrats opposed it. Why? Isn't that what they wanted? No. They don't want Trump to get any benefit from it. Because they think, if we let Trump have it, he looks too good. The Democrat Party is evil. It is not the party that it used to be. What? Yes, it is. It is. It just has a different face. The big thing that's changed is they used to hide who they were. Now, they're not ashamed of it. They love socialism. They love control. And they want to control you. Are you going to let them? The real home of racism today is in the Democrat Party. That's where it's at. It's pitiful. My daddy was a great Democrat, but he turned against him when Reagan ran. Never voted for him again. Are you going to let the Democrat Party, the Democrat Socialist Party, now own your country, they will destroy your life. They will destroy your family. They will destroy your children's future. And they will destroy everything you ever worked for. We have to fight them. If we don't, they will certainly fight us. The Democrat Party is working today to enslave all of America. We must stop them. I hope you take my word seriously. The only way to stop him is to re-elect Donald Trump. He is the wall that separates us who follow him from tyranny who will destroy us. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you'll take a look at it and consider my ideas. That's what I think.